Hi guys, welcome to this channel again. Today I'm going to talk about my first project that I'm going to share uh, about privacy. This channel is gonna be all about privacy. I'm also doing the Square 2D game engine, but that's a part. From that, all the projects is going to include some kind of privacy win there. That's the goal, is to develop your tools to gain more privacy. This is not for beginners. If you are new to privacy, there is a few good channels out there that I also learned a lot. I'm going to put them in the description below so you can check that out. You can check them out. Also, I'm going to do now this in English because on the latest video about the engine, I got some comments on Reddit saying that people didn't understand Portuguese, so I'm doing it in English, so hopefully everyone can understand now every single concept that I'm going to try to explain here. So this first project that we are going to do is going to be really complex in a sense that is going to be really hard, really large actually, okay? It's not gonna be a small project because it's gonna involve a lot of coding. We're gonna create what I call an agent, which is basically a client app that is going to run stealthy on a device that you own and you want to control it remotely. That's basically what Ecomms is going to be, okay? So the concept is really simple. I have here a Raspberry Pi 0W. This is really cheap, it's like $15. The reason that I choose this is because it's really cheap, that's the only reason. I have an external Bluetooth adapter there. You don't really need this. Why I'm doing this is because the built-in one, the Pi 0W, comes with wireless and Bluetooth. But the reason that I'm actually doing this is because my built-in Bluetooth is faulty. So I had to connect an external one. But you might not even need this, you just need a port, an SD card with the image. And then we're gonna create scripts to automatically configure it and install everything for this, okay? Also have a little wire here because I'm also using this as a Pi transmitter, so an FM transmitter, so it can radios can pick it up. But I said that's all you need. It's just a Pi 0. It runs an Linux machine, so yeah, pretty cheap. And the idea is really simple. Now, this all started with a problem that I had with a phone to make it private. Is that I got to the conclusion that even if you de-Google the phone, remove all the Google services and APIs and all of that, libs, there is one problem that it is going to always have and that you can never remove. That's what makes a phone basically, right? Your phone basically has two processors. It has the AP processor, which is the application one. That's what runs the actual operating system. So what you see, the Android and the iOS, in case of Apple. And then it has the baseband processor. That one is what basically interacts with your SIM card and with the cell towers. Well, the problem is that that processor is a completely black box. It runs a RTOS, which is a real-time operating system, so it's never off, it's always on. In old dumb phones, that's how they would keep the clock synchronized, okay? Of course, if you remove the battery, the clock resetted, but if you didn't remove the battery and with the phone off, it's still synchronizing the clock because that operating system was always running. And in modern phones, it's worse. It shares the same RAM space than your application processor, so in theory, it's totally possible to get data from your operating system. And the problem is that there is no way what's going in there. So it doesn't really matter if you de-Google the phone, that will always be a threat. Some people say that enabling airplane mode resolves the problem, which it does not resolve the problem. Airplane mode might reduce the signals or the frequencies that are used, but it does not stop sending signals, okay? That's not true. Even if some other people say removing the SIM card also might stop the baseband modem processor from communicating with cell towers. I don't believe that because you can still make emergency calls. Some people say that emergency calls might only so when you make the call, that's when the only time that it tries to connect and it makes the call. I don't believe that because otherwise it would take time to connect. But I don't know. So the only way that I found it really easy, and the main problem with this, it's your location, your history, right? You are walking with your phone, so your history is completely tracked with cell tower triangulation. So I had to find a way to kind of bypass that system, and what I did was Ecomms was my main idea at the beginning, but now it's much more than that. And basically the phone, like I do mostly the things on my computer in a virtual machine environment, so it's pretty isolated. I don't use the phone pretty much for anything unless I'm just browsing some occasional stuff, or I'm receiving calls via the PSTN, which is the public switch telephone network, which is rare also, but hospitals, government messages and all of that, finances, they like to use those, they like to use that network, so you can't really do anything about it. And this Ecomms system, basically what it does is that when I receive an SMS, it tells me live, you have received an SMS, I can ask it to read it for me, or I can then check it out on another agent, I might be running on my computer, and see what the message is, okay? But now Ecomms is a much bigger project than that. I can remote control pretty much any device that runs an agent on, via my voice only. So, and all that I have to carry with me is no phones, no nothing. It's just this board and my earbuds, and maybe an hotspot because you need to have an internet connection. But an hotspot, it's the easiest thing to get. And then my earbuds here, because I can use that to basically listen for the output and actually record. These buds, they have a mic that we are going to set up to be recording, and then we can set up as a recording device also, so we can issue our command, goes to the server processes the command, selects the agents, and does all of that stuff and returns back to me. So this device with me is going to be a special agent. It's going to be the commander. That's the one that can command any other agents, including the server. We'll also be able to command some server commands, okay? So let's start explaining a little bit better here. So the main components, the main keys to this project is going to be, we have to have a server, right? This server could be in the cloud. It's going to be on the cloud. It's going to be a Linux machine. We are going to set up SSH. We're going to configure the firewall and all of that. So there's a little bit of Linux administration there that is going to be needed to do. One thing I want to really explain, you should have some background if you want to also do this on tech or on coding, because it's not for beginners. Like, it is a lot of coding. I'm going to explain everything that I can in greater detail, but again, still a lot of things that you should be used to, some theory that you should know also, okay? And then we're gonna have the agents. Like I said, it's just a client, but I call the agent because each agent is gonna have a different purpose. For example, if I wanna just know when someone calls me, or I wanna make a call, I wanna know the GPS location, I want to get some sensors information about my device, that's a completely agent. So an agent will take care of that. And in that case, that would be an Android remote agent. Then I'm going to set up another agent, for example, if the device is stolen. Okay, that can happen, or if you lost. So in that agent is going to basically specialize on that side of things. So that is going to be called an Android security agent. I'm putting Android in front of this because this is specifically for Android devices, okay? That's why. I'm not going to do anything for iPhones at the moment, because I never did an app for iPhones, so I don't know how they work. But I have used Android Studio for a long time, so I know how to do them from Android. Like another agent that I also want to have, it's a what I'm gonna call an Android home agent. Okay, this is just for home automation stuff. So I have some smart plugs on my home that I want to command via my voice. I know I could use Alexa and all of that, but that's obviously has big privacy issues there. That's why I'm creating this whole project, right? To escape that. And it's gonna be finally a really important agent that is going to be, you can think as being in the admin, which I'm gonna call the commander. This commander agent is what is going to be running on the pipe, okay? Connected through Bluetooth to my earbuds, okay? So the idea is that I double tap, I have 5 seconds to say a command, it goes to a speech to text server to translate to text data, and then I put that into a file, and my commander will be looking in that file if there is something in there, because if there is something in there, means that I said something, so that's a command, and then it's going to parse that data, see if there is a command that it can recognize. If there is, it sends a network packet corresponding to that command to the server, and then it processes. If it needs to reach an agent to complete this task, it's going to reach that agent and get that information, or execute a task on the agent, return back a response back to the commander that hopefully is gonna give me an audio output on my ear saying if the command was successful, or if, you know, if I ask for example, what's the GPS location on my device, it's going to actually tell me the GPS location. It's going to try to geofence the street and all of that and tell me, okay? So, because these agents can be, you know, sending and receiving data that can be extremely sensitive, like the location and the SMS and calls, we need to make sure the authentication is really secure, okay? And I put some thought on this, and the server, so let me just separate this. So the server is going, we are going to set the server as a VPN server. And the first layer to protect that connection is going to be a VPN. It's going to be VPN connected. I'm going to explain what I mean by this. Okay. What I mean by this is that this Linux server is going to be acting as a VPN server. When we start coding the Java server application, we're going to bind the socket to the IP of the VPN server. We are also going to configure the server to not allow forwarding, so to deny any kind of forwarding. So basically you cannot communicate with other subnets, which means if you want to connect to the server, you have to be on the same subnet on the VPN, which means that your agents have to be connected to the VPN. That really narrows down, you know, the possibilities of an external attacker. Now the attacker would have to have some kind of VPN profile to connect to this VPN server, which is extremely hard to get. Other layer that I think about is the mTLS or mutual TLS. This is basically like a two-way SSL. So basically the server authenticates the client, and the client also authenticates the server. And this is really common in like companies, infrastructures. What they do is that they have a internal certificate authority. They, if they want to mark their devices as trusted, they issue a certificate, and then they sign that certificate with internal CA, and they put the certificate on that device. And then there is some management software that can manage and check if the certificate is there and if it was signed by the CA. So it's a trusted device in theory. We're gonna do exactly the same thing here, okay? And thirdly, we're gonna have an auth tokens list. So the auth tokens list is gonna be simply just a file on the server that is gonna contain, it's gonna be basically a list. It's gonna contain a token. It's gonna be a permanent token mapped to an ID. And the ID is gonna tell the server which agent type it is. It is a command, it is a remote, it is a security. Each agent type is gonna have an ID. For example, 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And the ID is only server-sided, and the token and the server has this list of tokens in the hashed format also. Okay. So what that means is that when a commander connects, sends that token, the server immediately knows that's a commander. The commander doesn't need to send anything to tell itself to the server there's a commander. The server already knows because only the server has that mapping table there. Okay. So that's pretty good because it prevents agent spoofing, right? Even though there is no way the Android remote agent telling there is a commander, the server knows that it isn't. So there is no way to spoof that. This also acts as an authorization model also because again it's determining what resources it is going to be attributed, because commanders have specific commands, powerful ones, it's like an admin, right? But the other ones have very different commands. So an agent directory structure. This is for example, when an agent connects, the server itself on this file system is going to create a directory just for that agent to store some files about that agent. Why I do this? Because, for example, imagine that you want to know the GPS location of a device that you lost, okay, right here, and it was running an Android security agent there. But suddenly they found a way to basically disconnect from the network, so it's no anymore online. So you can't reach it. You can't send a command to it saying to retrieve the location. But the idea is that if you have this file structure or file system on the server, every time that it syncs the location, it can save there. So even though you can't fetch the current location, you can fetch the last location. That might be useful. Okay. Although the security agent is going to be really specialized to prevent the disconnection from happening. We're going to talk about it a little bit more later. It's also going to have a console, so it's a management console. Okay. This is just for having some kind of input to issue some commands to an agent from the server shell. So you can connect to the server via SSH if you want, for example, and you can run a console there, and you can get the GPS location again, do all the commands that you can do with the commander, you can do on the server through the management console. That's the idea, and a little bit more. For example, if you want to check some logs, if you want to check if a new device is connected that you don't recognize, if a VPN profile was added without your consent, or basically if you want to see if another person has logged into your server, you can also do that from the management console. That's the whole idea of having this. Okay, so the commander agent, but we already talked about it's going to be the power agent, right? So I'm going to say the power agent. Commands all other agents. I also was thinking of doing the synchronization, directory structure synchronization with the commander. So in case the server becomes unavailable, also the commander will have that place. That's the thing we can do. Not necessarily this to be there, but I can actually include that there if we need that that thing. I mean, it's not very hard to do it, so we can just implement it anyways. Just copies basically the file system, syncs it. Then the command that is going to be running on the Pi is going to basically record a command that we say to it and send that audio to a speech-to-text server. We're going to use Google for that, and it's going to return that voice into a JSON format, text data, that then we can use it in our program as an input to our program. So we're gonna use an STT, which is a speech-to-text API from Google. Also gonna have a Bash API. Okay, this Bash API is basically for, we are going to create a lot of Bash scripts because our program, our agent is going to have to interact with some file system stuff with the operating system. So we have to find a way to basically, kind of call the middleware so the application can easily access stuff from the file system, from the operating system, and vice versa. So we're gonna create a lot of Bash scripts to do that. We're gonna create our own API for that, if you will. Also gonna have remote wipe. So if we need remotely wipe the device completely, so if we lose it or something like that, actually every agent is gonna have the remote wipe thing, okay? Then we can set up like a class on the base class. So an agent is gonna be, we are going to use inheritance for this. I think is the best way to do this, where we have like a base agent class, and then we can derive every agent from that class, and that class can contain like which is basically the same for each agent, which is going to be the remote wipe and maybe the connect packet and the authentication packet, for example, and then we can have some override methods there to basically change according to the agent type, something like that. We're gonna figure it out. Well, the commander will also have you are going to also be able to execute some commands to the sub itself from the commander, okay? So I'm gonna say some server control, like connections. So you can define, you can disconnect an agent if you want via voice, via your Ecomms, okay? That's cool. Now let's go to the Android remote agent. This one, the purpose of this agent is basically to have remote control of the device or notify you if you receive a call, an SMS, a message from the PSTN, or because even though you migrate everything to VoIP, and mostly VoIP apps can run on Linux and on VMs, so that's fine. There are the SMS, and the calls from the public switch telephone network. You have to have them anyways, because hospitals, government services like finances and all of that, they use that network. So there is no way to migrate that to VoIP. So the Android remote agent is going to be able to fetch SMSs or call logs from Android device, okay? You can also set it up your agent to basically by voice to send an automated response. You can do that, although I don't recommend. I mean, it could be cool if it is well set up. Let me just put ring. Oh my gosh, yeah, ring call, something like that. Not a phone call, because I had to program some kind of audio stream, and I'm not gonna do that. So, but at least you can ring a number if you want to remotely, and you can send an automated SMS if you want. For example, you might have a template, you give it a name or an ID, and then by voice you say that ID or that name, and then it sends that automated reply to a number, for example. We wanted to be able to enable the microphone and camera on Foreground. Okay, so in Android Studio, basically the Foreground concept is basically like a background. Think of it as being a background service. Okay, so we want to be able to enable the microphone of the device and the camera on the background if we need to remotely. Okay. Also, we want to get or sync GPS location of the device, and here we have to be very careful how we do this, because we can drain the battery really quickly if we don't are careful with this. For example, there is two things that we have to keep in mind, which is the interval, so how much time it waits until it tries to fetch a new location, because that drains the battery a lot. So 30 seconds is not a very good idea, but maybe 5 minutes is a little bit better. You don't need 30 seconds updates, you can do it in 5 minutes, it's okay most of the times. Depends on your situation, of course. And also another parameter here to save battery is when you do this on Android, request a location update, you're gonna have two modes. One is the precise location and the approximate location. The difference is that the precise location uses all sources of location that it can, which could be the GPS, the cellular triangulation, Wi-Fi triangulation, Bluetooth scanning, all of them combined to give an exact position. That, of course, uses a lot more battery. So, and you have to decide again in your use case what you need. If you don't need a precise location, you can basically just use an approximate location. Okay. I want to be able to do FS operations. Like view, push, pull, or delete. Okay. So what I mean by FS operations, I mean file system operations. So I want to be able to view files from the file structure of the device, put files there, to get files from it, and basically delete them, and even when I use the management console, I want to be able to see the actual structure on the management console. We're gonna do that, okay? Really important also, get the sensors data of the device. Android devices have a lot of sensors that you can use the data, and you can actually, depending of the value of that data, of each sensor, you can actually combine them. So, for example, if you let your phone in your desk and you leave home, okay, and then if Ecomms commander tells you that your phone is moving, okay, if no one is at the home, that should be a concern immediately to you, because someone might be invading your home. Or if someone it is at home and it might pick up your phone, you want to be sure what they are doing with your phone. Maybe they are just picking it up because they need to clean that space under it, or maybe they are picking it up because they want to try to unlock it. And if you get that kind of data, and then you can combine with the Android broadcasts, okay? A broadcast in Android is basically a global event that every app can listen to. For example, when you unlock the phone, it sends a global event saying that the phone was unlocked. When you wake up the phone, so when it's locked, when you before you even try to unlock it, when it wakes up when it wakes up the screen, also sends a global event. You can listen for that. So basically, right there, you can know if someone is trying to unlock your phone while you are away, for example. So if your gyroscope tells you that it is moving, someone picked it up, and right after, in a small interval, you receive a broadcast that someone is trying to unlock the phone, you immediately know, even really far away, immediately know that someone was trying to access your phone. I also want to be able to play media on the foreground. So, for example, you can, this is more for pranks, or to scare actually people. For example, if someone are trying to do that, what I just said, you could try to play like an alarm, media, I don't know, on the background, even with the phone locked. Also, like I said, I want to be able to listen for broadcasts, or register them. Oh my gosh. And like any other agent, a remote wipe also is good. maybe you lose the device, you want to remote wipe it for security reasons, okay? Android security agent. This one, it has a really particular purpose, and that is like in the case that you lose your device and you want to locate it, or in the case it is stolen but you want still to locate it, okay? And to kind of get the perspective how you would do this, you have to be in the mind of the thief right here, right? Like trying to think how they do. Normally they will try to disconnect the phone from the network to prevent the phone from, you know, broadcasting its location. So this agent will be basically specialized to prevent that from happening, okay? The agent will do all the software side that it needs to do to prevent that, but if we want to go to the extreme, we can actually go and do the hardware tweaks also on the phone for preventing the phone from powering off, for example, or from or preventing the attacker from removing the SIM card, for example. If you use mobile data as your main internet gateway, that would work. One idea that I have for the application side is the decoy activities. So an activity in Android, activities. For example, in the Gmail app, you have a main activity which lists your emails, but then when you click to compose a new email, that opens up a new activity. It's a new layout basically, okay? It's like a scene in Unity, if you use Unity to games, okay? We want to prevent the shutdown of the device also. At the software level, we can like launch a fake power off activity, like that it seems like it's powering off, but it's not powering off. It's just like locking the phone again, but it looks like it's powering off. You know, we could try to do this. At the hardware level, we can literally brick the power button. That sounds a little bit extreme, but if you open the phone and you actually cut the metal connections there, the phone looks perfectly fine from the outside, but the power button does not work. And I know that it sounds a little bit extreme, but in reality I don't use the power button anyways, because I can wake up the phone just by double tapping or by picking it up because of the sensors. If it runs out of battery, I can just connect my charger and it will automatically power up. If it doesn't power up, it has a button that I can touch. So the power button is not really useful. And if you break it, the attacker cannot power off the phone via the button, which is pretty good. Because remember, this is preventing the disconnection of the device. It needs to be connected in order for you to get the location of it. Okay, very important to keep the network connectivity there. Android security agent will have all the capabilities of the remote agent. Okay, everything that it can do will the Android security agent will also be able to do. For example, if you want to, on panic mode, when you are being robbed or something, you can start enabling the microphone, for example, of the phone. And we can, or we can start recording the camera on Foreground. That way, we have layer proof that we can show to authorities. Again, you should contact your lawyer before you do anything of that kind, but again, it's better than having nothing, right? For example, it's just like an idea. In panic mode, you can, program to a keyword. When you say a keyword, it starts, crazy, assuming that you are being robbed, starts on the microphone, the camera, starts preventing the shutdown and all of that. Okay. Really important also, and I really recommend this way, is that you should have a SIM card there, a data SIM only if you can, because you should have a permanent internet connection to be able to communicate to the Ecomms server. Okay, and well, since we are preventing, we have to prevent somehow the SIM card from being removed, because if it is removed, you are going to be disconnected from the network, and then you cannot really use this system. You can go to the extreme again. You can basically, super glue the SIM card in there if you want to, like the slot where it goes. You can think of multiple ways to do that. Prevent SIM card. SIM card removal. But the whole main thing is to prevent the disconnection from the network, right? And we can do some things at the software level side, of the application side. For example, on Android, when the phone is locked, when you pull down the notification bar, you have those icons. If the phone is locked, normally you cannot enable Wi-Fi, but you can disable it. So if it is already enabled, the mobile data, the Wi-Fi, if you click it, even with locked, you can disable it, and that's a problem because if they disable, then you lose connection. So the way that you can do this is basically on Android. It's a little bit inconvenient, but again, on Android, on the notification bar, you can edit the icons that appear there, so you can just remove them from appearing, so the attacker with a phone locked cannot do much thing there. Or you can go one step further, and this is theory, I don't know if it is possible, but I noticed that some apps on Android, like the VPN app, creates an icon. So I assume that it's possible for us to create also an icon. And you can create an icon that looks like the Wi-Fi. It is not, it is a fake Wi-Fi icon. But the person robbing you or stealing you thinks that's the Wi-Fi icon, and they think they have disabled it, but it still running, right? The same with the mobile data and the SIM card. Really important also, you have to remove all the icons or spoof all the icons, not just those, but all that can have an impact. For example, if the person enables power saving mode, it might disconnect the Wi-Fi to save power or the mobile data. So you should also have to remove this. If it enables the airplane mode, it will disconnect the mobile data, so you also have to remove that airplane mode from the notification bar. So you have to think what can impact what. You can do automated alerts if you want to. Oops. Right there. So for example, if the device, if you trigger the panic mode by saying a voice command and starts doing all this crazy stuff, you can basically like create an automated alert to send like a notification to all of your devices at home that someone at home will see, saying that you are in danger. And you can even program to send your current GPS location to that person, so that person can do something about it. I don't know, call the authorities or do something about it. You can do some kind of situation. You can do something like that if you want to. That's an idea. This Android security agent will also make it hard for the attacker to use the device after the panic mode is triggered, right? So make it hard. To use the device. One way you can do this is basically you can control the brightness of the phone, and you can basically always lock it at the minimum level, so the attacker will have a hard time trying to see the screen, which basically is gonna make him look closer to the screen, and that's perfect because if you enable the camera on the foreground, you can actually get a really good quality photo of the attacker that you can report then to the police. That's amazing, right? So that's a good idea. And then again, like the other agents, remote wiping or self-destruct or something like that. I mean, after you collect all of those evidence, are synced to the server, then you can safely remote wipe the device. So the attacker, even if they gain access, they don't get access to anything. Android Home Agent is basically for home automation devices. I have some automation devices that uses Tapo, the Tapo app, so from TP-Link, and some devices they have an API that you can use over the LAN. My device is like the the cheapest one, it doesn't have to. So the way that I found is that basically to install the official app on the device. So install official apps for home automation, and then on Android there is something that you can create, which is called a special service that is called an accessibility service. That thing is crazy on Android because it can read your screen basically, and you can search for text, and if you find a button or something that has that text, you can actually emulate a click or a touch. Pretty crazy. So we're gonna run this agent as an accessibility service. We're gonna make it open the Tapo app, and then go in there, and we're gonna create shortcuts for different things like turning on the lights of my bedroom, turning on my main system, for example, and automate everything by voice. So the idea is that we use as an accessibility service, we look for that particular text. Each action is gonna have a unique text, and then we emulate a click depending of the command. So in that way, we can automate everything via voice using our own code, our own program, without relying on any third-party services like Alexa or Google Voice, Google Assistant, or other ones. Okay, and we gain a lot of privacy because we control all of this. All of this is under our control, no third party. Like the speech to text, well, Google records that, but again, this is just commands. So use as an accessibility service right there. Detect the buttons and the text on the screen. And emulate clicks there. So as you can see, every agent has a purpose. Everything that you can program, then you can do it, or automate, then you can do it. So just go with your imagination and try to do cool agents basically with this project. For example, even if someone is invading your house or by the gyro and that situation that we talked before, you can basically send a command to the home agent that is always, it's going to be another device that will be always at home, to it to basically start playing an alarm sound on a smart device that you might have. You can interact agent actions with other agents, okay? It's just not a single commander to agent or commander to server agents. You can send the commander, okay, if that agent detects something, make a command to, first of all, alert me on the commander side, and then do some other actions on the other agents. You can totally do this, okay? So it's really cool. It's cross communication. Like you can play an alarm in that situation. You might have a device an alarm, or a device that really plays a really loud sound and it's turned off, but with this it turns on that plug because it's a smart plug, and then it starts playing the alarm. For example, it's an idea, okay? And also you're gonna have the remote wiping. If someone stole this device at home, well, they don't get a lot of things because this device will only be dedicated to the home agent, home automation. So only thing running is gonna be the home automation apps and the agents. No personal data, no nothing. So they don't store anything valuable. Could even be a really cheap the device. They're gonna stay always at home, maybe hidden, so no problem there. that's it. I'm going to close here. That's the idea of Ecomms, basically. It started as a privacy approach, but it turns into a lot more stuff. Okay. But that's it, guys. That's for the Ecomms project. I think I'm gonna terminate here because the video is quite long already. I already did some prototypes before, so I already accomplished this. Okay. Not all, but the base of everything, I already did it. We're gonna use Java for it, and we're gonna use Bash, a lot of Bash to do the API. I'm gonna use the Google speech-to-text API. We're gonna do some Linux system administration because we need to rent a server, configure the Linux system there, harden it a little bit, configure as an open VPN server, you know, create a daemon service to be able to start the Ecomms server automatically on reboot, configure the firewall. We're gonna use IP tables for it and all of that. But that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and then on the next video we're gonna start by the server. We're gonna either create a virtual machine, or even I'm gonna show you how to rent a server online and start hardening and configuring as an OpenVPN server, okay? And we can maybe start doing more things. But that's going to be the introduction video to this project. I hope you liked it, and I see you on the next video. Thanks.